I would love to see interesting new publications that are not business and or policy centric.
So do you think there's going to be kind of a general sense of pressure from the kind of business or ownership of media companies to maybe not go as hard on this administration as possible, to not create the fights?
Yes, Peter Thiel and Gawker illustrated the danger of angering someone with essentially infinite resources.
If there's more self-censoring where the more liberal or left-leaning voices feel like they no longer have a voice within kind of classical media, do we start to see people from that side moving across into Substack?
No, I don't think so. If you don't feel like you can do that at the New York Times, the Washington Post, you're certainly not going to do it at Substack.
$50 million, go build the media company of your dreams. What would that media company look like?
It wouldn't be my dreams.
Okay. We were talking earlier about the Lenfest Institute, which owns the Philadelphia Inquirer, which was bought by a billionaire, but it has the best kind of billionaire owner in that he is dead.
It's a funny line, but just to tease it out, Tony's not calling for us to kill billionaires. But
no,
the reason is...
to be very, very clear. My name is Tony Haile. No one cares who I am. The person who you're here to see is Peter Kafka. He has bestrode the digital world like a colossus for the last 40 or 50 years, I believe, and is now chief correspondent at Business Insider.
And the host of Channels.
And the host of Channels. It's an amazing podcast.
Available from the Vox Media podcast network.
He has his own empire. So we have 30 minutes to talk about the future of media. We're going to talk about the government a little bit because, there was an election, turns out. We're going to talk about AI, and then we're going to just deal in gossip, I think.
Are we going to do audience Q&A? Are we doing audience Q&A too?
I've been told we're not allowed to because this audience is disreputable.
Okay.
So we'll see.
If you want to hear an English person answer your questions, find Tony afterwards.
Please do. Okay, so I texted you this morning, and I said, anything you want to dig into today, where do your spiciest takes lie? And you responded, we're all fucked, lol. Media is an industry that has been playing baseball with meteors for quite some time now. And then over this last week, we've had the election. Well, we had the election, and then on Thursday, the Columbia Journalism Review reported that Trump had sent a letter suing the New York Times for $10 billion.
I think he threatened to sue.
Threatened to sue, yes.
He has sued CBS for $10 billion. It's hard to keep the $10 billion
There's so
Trump
many $10
suits.
billions around. And then today, and I'm going to read this one because I thought it was fabulous, Brendan Carr, the incoming head of the FCC, said, broadcast media have had the privilege of using a scarce and valuable public resource, our airwaves. In turn, they are required by law to operate in the public interest. When the transition is complete, the FCC will enforce this public interest obligation. So you have that. You have NBC. He suggested that NBC should lose their license for having Kamala on SNL. And now
they've gone after NBC, CBS, and ABC. Should all lose their license, according to various people in the Trump administration, starting with Donald Trump.
Which is kind of the ball game. And now you've had Morning Joe go down to Mar-a-Lago this morning to reopen communications.
They went on Friday to open up communications. So there's a FoxNews.com piece you should read. The headline is Donald Trump pledges to work with media, and has many quotes about how interested he is in the free press, but he can't help himself. So at some point in that ramble, he says, I'm willing to work with them, blah, 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 as long as and then he has some line like to the effect of, as they're respectful and good.
Yeah, as long as they agree with me, we're good. So I don't want
like I said, we're fucked.
We're kind of fucked. Well, let's shorten the timeline for a second here to the next 12 months. What do you see happening over the next 12 months as this new administration kind of takes over?
All right, just so we're clear, because this won't be 30 minutes of just depressing shit, I'm also going to ask questions of Tony, because Tony tries to build things. Tony has built things. He built Chartbeat, if you've ever dealt with Chartbeat.
Sorry.
He built a thing called Scroll, which most of you didn't use, then got sold to Twitter pre-Elon, so he has some Twitter stories for us. So it won't just be me shitting about the next 12 months. But since you asked.
Since I asked.
It's not good, Tony.
It's not good.
All of the structural economic problems media was facing still exist. Now you add on a presidency that is actively involved in trying to fight the press, whether they mean it or not doesn't matter, because you've got to act as if they mean it. CBS has to employ lawyers to go fight what is essentially a nuisance suit in a North Texas district court. And by the way, they have to take it seriously because that's a weird court. So they've got to spend money and resources on that. There's a limited number of companies that can even pay for those lawyers once, let alone multiple times. And then we move down, as you move down the food chain, there's just lots and lots of publications that will just say, let's just not engage in this kind of news gathering. We literally can't afford a single one of these suits, not just to lose them, but to fight them.
So do you think there's going to be kind of a general sense of pressure from the kind of business or ownership of media companies to maybe not go as hard on this administration as possible, to not create the fights? Do you think that's...
Yes. Yes, and by the way, this all precedes Trump, right?
Yeah.
Peter Thiel and Gawker illustrated the danger of angering someone with essentially infinite resources. Lots of other publications were dealing with that prior to Trump. It only ramps up from there. You have Elon Musk, who literally has unlimited resources, who is throwing lawyers around sometimes for fun. He had a lawyer reportedly showing up at the bankruptcy auction involving The Onion and Alex Jones. Why is Elon Musk doing that? There's no downside for him to involve himself for any of this. So it's not great. And yeah, there will be a lot of self-censoring, and the polite way of saying is they'll say, is this a story we really need to pursue? And if we do need to pursue the story, we need to be that much more careful. We need to spend that much more time on defensive editing. We need to maybe make sure that headline doesn't say something that we absolutely cannot stick with. You may argue that that's a good thing, but I'd rather have press that takes a few extra swings instead of choking up on the bat, as we would say in America.
So in that context of self-censorship and these kind of challenges, I want to look at three different levels. I want to talk through the WAPO, I want to talk through Substack, and then creators. Okay. So with the WAPO, owned by a billionaire, already had this problem where they lost, I think it was 250K subscribers.
It's an astonishing number.
Yeah, in 24 hours. Which I think is 10% of their subscriber base.
Yeah, and to be clear, anyone in business, if you would have said prior to that number coming out, what do you think the Washington Post lost from angry Bezos subscribers? At most, people would have said 10, 20,000. It's even in a world where it's really easy to unsubscribe, it still takes some work to unsubscribe. And we're all used to people complaining on Twitter, but they don't actually do anything. For 250,000 people to do anything is astonishing.
And so the interesting question for me is, as we look forward as to where the WAPO goes from here, because traditionally, when the first Trump administration happened, the story was, you need to subscribe to journalism because it is a defense against democracy. We are the people who will tell the hard truths. How does the WAPO, what do you think is the path for the WAPO to kind of regain that story, regain that trust? Do you think it has a pathway?
Well, they're not going to try to regain that story. They've made it quite clear in terms of who they've hired that they're no longer in the democracy darkness business. They're in something else. Jeff Bezos says it's about appealing to both sides. We could spend hours talking about what both sides means in a world where facts are facts and facts are not facts.
Yeah.
But I don't think I don't think that anyone thinks that there is a big business to be had in resistance media this time around. So I don't think that's available to the Post, even if they wanted it.
So it's interesting in that fact, because you have this notion of subscription as kind of tribal identity often with these things. It's like, I subscribe not just for the journalism, but because I identify, or part of my identity is that I am a subscriber to this thing. And so yeah, playing both sides will be tough for the WAPO, but as we look at kind of something like Substack, so Nilay Patel was here earlier, and he calls Substack, I think, a political project of the right. And one of the things that's kind of interesting for me is this notion that if there is more self-censoring where the more liberal or left-leaning voices feel like they no longer have a voice within kind of classical media, do we start to see people from that side moving across into Substack? And does it kind of reframe what a lot of people's perspective about Substack has been? Does it become the last place for liberals?
No, I don't think so. You either feel like you can print stories that are critical of the president and other people in power, or you don't. And if you don't feel like you can do that at the New York Times, the Washington Post, you're certainly not going to do it at Substack, which has next to no support for someone who, if a Peter Thiel went after a Substack writer, Substack can't do anything about it. They don't have the resources for that.
Isn't he an investor?
What's that? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you pick your version of it. They just don't want to be in that world.
Yeah.
Billionaires are not a great defense mechanism, but you'd rather have a billionaire owning your publication than not when another billionaire comes after it.
Yeah.
When it comes down to Substack, there's just nothing there.
We were talking earlier about the Lenfest Institute, which owns the Philadelphia Inquirer, which was bought by a billionaire, but it has the best kind of billionaire owner in that he is dead. And so they have been able to be very successful in driving this.
It's a funny line, but just to tease it out, Tony's not calling for us to kill billionaires. But
No,
the reason
to be very, very clear.
The reason it's good to have a dead billionaire funding your publication is
They know their interests no longer have to be totally aligned with yours. You've got the money, and you can try and forge when they were feeling at their very best and their most kind of democracy saving, they gave you the money, and they
can't walk it back.
They can't walk it back. They can't say, I also have a space shuttle that I want to use.
Or my daughter feels differently about the election, and I've been listening to her, and we're going to rethink the way we do endorsements.
That too. So to go from Substack to creators as well, because I know there was a whole creator panel earlier, but just to touch on this for a second as well, I sometimes think about that scene in the original Star Wars where they're in the trash compactor. On the one side, you've got the kind of governments pushing to self-censor, and on the other side, you've got creators who have often more audience and a better relationship with their audience, and will give you a very uncritical time. If you are a CEO or a politician, how does journalism get access to the people that it needs to? If I know that, if I've got a choice between going to Peter Kafka, who will give me a curmudgeonly skeptical view of my company, but I'll get very excited if you write the good thing. But it's 80-20 that you're going to be skeptical, versus someone who will be a puppy dog about whatever I choose to tell them. How do you still get people to come to you in that context? Do you think the creators are now going to change your ability to access the people you need to access?
Not because of politics.
Just with it's like another pressure coming in, not from politics, but just from the changing nature of the future of media.
I mean, when I think about creators, I think about people who, in most cases, are more dependent than any other media actors on the platforms and the algorithms. And so when I think about them, I don't think about them trying to not upset Donald Trump or to make George Soros happy or whatever version of it. It's to make the TikTok algorithm do the thing that it did last month, and to spend a lot of time working on 5 different platforms so that if TikTok goes away or you fall out of favor in TikTok, that you still got YouTube, et cetera.
YouTube,
and you're just bouncing around from platform to platform, and you don't really have time to think about the political impact of what you're doing.
Sure.
Or risk.
Yeah. Okay, let's turn to AI, which I've heard is a thing. So media companies report, create content from that reporting, and then promote and curate that. In the search and social web, promotion and curation was taken away by companies that use personalization and aggregation to kind of remove that from the publishers. Now we see AI companies using personalization and aggregation to move the content layer away from publishers, leaving us with reporting, which traditionally has been quite hard to monetize. So what happens when AI is the interface for news? Paywalls don't make sense. Advertising on a page doesn't make sense.
So in this scenario, I go to Perplexity or ChatGPT and ask them a question which may or may not be about the news, but they're harvesting that.
Tell me what happened today.
Right,
they're
harvesting that from news places, and it makes me I have that much less reason to go to news.com.
If my default way of interfacing in the digital world is by asking AI to do things for me, and I can use that multimodal, I can use that voice, I can do whatever, and it's going to come back with the content that I want. is there a reason for me to go to CNN?
So the stock answer from people who are in that business today is, well, our trusted voice is more important than ever. And that's why you want to come to CNN or CNN.com or NewYorkTimes.com. And I imagine a scenario in which that is partially true, or that people just feel better, people who care about news. This is a subset of a subset.
Yeah.
Might still want to go to the Times because they feel like they're getting better information. They might want to subscribe to the Times because they're still defending democracy and or they want the tote bag, whatever it is. What you're really doing is fast forwarding through a transition we were already headed towards, which is all commodity news, the value of it goes to just about zero. And we were headed that way for a very long time, whether or not it was an AI person aggregating your news, or Yahoo, or someone working for wages that you could never get away with in America. We've seen all that coming, so that's just speeding it up, speeding it up, speeding it up. And the bummer for lots and lots of publishers, separate from the trust issue, is just how much of what they put out is commodity.
Yeah.
And so you are seeing everyone belatedly going, all right, we gotta cut down on commodity news as well. I go back to my hometown in Minnesota twice a year. My parents still get the print newspaper. It has the box scores of baseball games printed in the physical paper in 2023. It's amazing that they can
AOL
still
had a
do
dial-up
that.
business right through like 2016 or something.
Yeah, well, that's at least you're ripping people off and telling them you're getting a virus software protection.
So people's behaviors maybe don't change that fast as well.
It's just hard to get out of your ruts. But the consumer has moved past it all, right?
Yeah.
Like there's 10 people who are reading those agate box scores. Anyone who cares what the score of the Twins game was knew it instantaneously.
Yeah.
So all of that, everything can be commoditized, will be commoditized, is being commoditized. If you're in a commodity business, you should have got out of it a long time ago, and you should hurry up to make sure you're out of it now.
Yeah. So there's a lot of these commodity businesses that are doing deals with OpenAI on this. And like, we both talked to a bunch of kind of media execs and so forth. And the thing that I've consistently heard is we don't see a path out of this. Whether we take the money or not doesn't matter. We're still going to be fucked.
Yeah.
So why not take the money anyway?
Yeah.
Is that what you're hearing as
100%.
well?
Anyone who speaks to me candidly says it's coming regardless. These are the people who do these OpenAI deals or the equivalent, which is our stuff is going to be commoditized and taken, and if they're not taking it from us, they're taking it from our competitors, so it's effectively the same thing. And in the meantime, we can use this money to pay for next quarter's journalists. And we're smart, we're not stupid, we can see all the problems inherent with this. We saw what happened with Facebook when we were essentially working as contractors for Facebook Live Video or whatever that was. We're not going to do that this time around, which is just about sort of massaging the margins of the deal. But the big swing is the same, which is the train is coming, you can either get some money or not.
Yeah. But at least as well, we also get these amazing new tools for creating new forms of journalism.
I haven't seen what that manifests yet. Has anyone here seen AI used in an interesting way or meaningful way in news? One person.
We've got one person.
Do you want to shout out what it was?
Yeah, it aggregates stories from things that you're not following, artificial intelligence, purely like keyword matching.
So an aggregator.
Yeah, I mean, like AI, sure.
Aggregated with AI. Okay, I'm not going to make this a full-on thing because I don't get the chance to do this very often, and it's quite fun. But find us afterwards and tell us your second one. I want to move on to the green shoots of possibility
Yes, sir.
that we're growing as we watch these meteors of government and AI come towards us. So we've got a few companies that have been starting up that have been growing. They've been like things like Puck, things like Semaphore, and so forth, where they would argue, I'm sure, that there's actually still a healthy business to be made out of media and so forth. What do you think are the characteristics that define them as being different from the rest here?
Not to be flippant, one, they're new, so they haven't had time to sort of reach the trough of disappointment, right? So when you're new, everything's up and to the right, and if it's not up and to the right, you should not be doing it.
Yeah.
I like many people who are making this stuff, and we should have more green shoots and more startups, so I don't mean to be flip about it. The real commonality is they are all targeting niche, affluent audiences, in large part that are, Puck would like to be in Washington more than it is, but all of them, it's not a surprise that Semaphore, Axios, Punchbowl are all publications that really should have been part of the Washington Post or New York
Yeah.
Times because they're all dedicated to writing about what's happening in and around Washington. They all depend heavily on what's called corporate responsibility ads. These are ads basically from Facebook telling legislators how they should be regulated. If you've ever watched a Sunday show, that's the equivalent of that. They're all getting the equivalent of that Sunday show money. And it's the Post and the Times should both be embarrassed that they allowed those things to sort of sprout up underneath them. But that's what they're targeting. And whether they're paid directly by consumers and there's a subscription, or whether they're paid primarily by the Facebook ads of the world, they're all in that same pool. You will not find a lot of hot startups covering the environment, for instance, where there isn't sort of that natural. I mean, there could be
There's
one.
climate and energy policy.
That's a different one. But I would love to see interesting new publications that are not business and/or policy centric. I love that those things exist. I would just love to find some other answer to that question.
It'd be nice to see if a business could exist without subscriptions being expensed in a reasonable way.
Yep.
So we did have one company that came along and tried to build a new broad media company, which was The Messenger, which didn't work out.
Yeah.
But if now Jimmy Finkelstein was to come to you and say, Peter, I've realized that I'm a horrible human being that shouldn't be running a media company in any way whatsoever. Here's $50 million. Go build the media company of your dreams. What would that media company look like?
It wouldn't be my dreams.
Okay.
I know that I would not try to make a broad general interest publication. I just don't.
You think it's dead? You can't do it
dead.
anymore?
It's just a race to the bottom.
Okay.
Anything that is going to reach hundreds of millions of people is going to be just sort of bland by definition, and then you're still just chasing down
so
declining
scale is
RPM.
Gone.
What a lot of people who've done what I've done and have been around media for a long time, they come out of it going, like my old boss, Nick Carlson, come out of it going, oh, I'm putting all my money into video because that's the future. So good for them. But I wouldn't want to do that. What I think is interesting is rebundling some of the creators. What we used to call a magazine or other publication.
Yeah, the original word magazine means this.
Yeah. This is an idea. This is not an original idea, and I'm thinking about it a lot because I did an interview with Matt Iglesias, co-founder of Vox, now at Substack, is one of those guys who has made $1 gazillion at Substack. He runs a 3-person operation, including him, that grosses around $1.4 million, so killing it. And I said to him, so you'll just keep doing this until the end of days, right? He goes, well, what I'd really like to do is not do this on my own and be around 10 or 12 or 20 other people who are doing stuff like me, and I wish we could figure out how to make the economics work. Yeah. And that's where it breaks down, is Matt Iglesias is not going to make $1.4 million when we rebundle.
Yeah.
There's just, the money isn't there.
It's hard to merge tribes.
Yeah. So he'd have to accept getting paid a lot less.
Yeah.
But maybe there's some way to say, can we incentivize a bunch of different really talented people, figure out comp that works for them so they get paid both in the near term and they can share in success, and all the standard things you do to build a startup. And we're going to give you, here's 20 great voices, all under one website. We just used to call these a magazine or a
you would
network.
spend $40 million on your own salary and then $10 million to build the Substack magazine.
Just go get the best. I mean, by the way, this is what Puck is trying to do, right? But they, again, are very, their pitch is, we're what the insiders are reading, and there's value to that. But I think we could broaden that out and find an audience of many more millions of people who just want to read interesting, good stuff that's timely and relevant to them.
Okay, so we've got 2 minutes left.
So tell me about Elon in the last 2 minutes. You worked for Elon for how long?
I met him and Walter Isaacson. We had an hour together, and then I went to the head of Corp Dev and said, please, can I not be here? And left, I think, the Tuesday after. Was there ever a moment during your Elon tenure where you thought, Elon will be good for the thing we were calling Twitter at the time? I think it was very difficult to be at Twitter in the months beforehand and see some of the ways in which some of our executives were attacked, especially some of our women executives were attacked, and feel a sense of hope and joy after that. It was also very interesting to see his perspective where he thought of Twitter in the same ways he thought about the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, which was like, it's just a business that should be half ads, half subs, and had very specific ideas about how to get those subs that may or may not have been backed up by experience.
Do you think, last question about Twitter, that he thought back when he bought Twitter that he was going to turn Twitter into what it is today, which is a megaphone for voices on the right?
I think if you'd have asked him now, I think he doesn't. He would say he hasn't done that. He said he's making a megaphone for free speech. I think that he thought it would be much more successful from a monetary perspective. But I think what's become very, very clear is the outcome he cared about was not the revenue of Twitter, but it was the ability to create influence, just as every billionaire in every media company has ever been. And in that, he's been extraordinarily successful.
Now he's got ringside seats with the president.
Yeah.
Sorry, do you have a question for me?
I was going to ask you if you're on Blue Sky yet.
Yeah, turns out I signed up during one of the great migrations, but had not touched it again until last week. And honestly, I don't know why y'all are so excited to go back there. But I'm there. You can look me up. It's P. Kafka. But I get that we want to recreate the Twitter of our
There's like
dreams.
2012 Twitter.
Pick your time. When Twitter was really great, when you were a different person as well.
I had more hair. It was a whole different thing.
We all wanted different things, but we're not bringing it back. And I'm all for finding cool social networks where we want to hang out and spend time. I don't know why this one will be
But we've
better.
got to move forward, not back. Okay, on that note, that's exactly our time. Thank you so much for listening to us blather on. Peter Kafka.